They never say it directly. A younger woman can admire an older man deeply, then suddenly lose attraction without warning. Not because of his age, not because of his money, not even because of his looks, but because of certain habits that quietly destroy masculine energy from the inside. And the terrifying part is this: most older men never realize they're doing it. They think they're being caring, mature, protective, experienced, but in her mind, something begins shifting emotionally. The mystery disappears, the tension dies, the respect weakens, and slowly, attraction fades. Not overnight, silently. That's why some older men become incredibly magnetic to younger women, while others become emotionally invisible no matter how successful they are. And today, we're going deeper than surface-level dating advice. Because this is not just about attraction. This is about psychology, energy, emotional discipline, stoicism, and the dangerous habits that make a man lose his masculine presence without even noticing it. One of these habits is so common that millions of men do it every single day, believing it creates love, when in reality, it quietly destroys desire. And the final habit? It's the one that separates respected men from emotionally weak men. Once you understand it, you will never see relationships the same way again. Subscribe to the channel now for more powerful videos on stoicism, masculine psychology, emotional discipline, and self-mastery. Because in a world full of emotional chaos, disciplined men become unforgettable. Habit number 1: trying too hard to appear young. This habit destroys attraction faster than most men realize. And ironically, it usually comes from insecurity. An older man meets a younger woman and suddenly begins abandoning his natural energy, trying to compete with younger men. He changes how he talks, forces slang into conversations, tries too hard to fit modern trends, begins acting restless, overly energetic, emotionally performative, almost like he is apologizing for his age without saying it directly. At first, she may laugh politely. She may even entertain it. But deep inside, something starts feeling emotionally unstable. Because true masculine presence is rooted in self-acceptance, not performance, not imitation, not validation-seeking behavior. And younger women notice this far more than men think. A woman is constantly reading emotional energy beneath words. She observes whether a man is comfortable within himself, whether he owns his identity confidently, whether he carries calm certainty, or whether he secretly seeks approval. This is where Stoicism becomes powerful. Stoic philosophy teaches that peace comes from accepting reality instead of fighting it. An older man who accepts himself fully radiates grounded confidence. He does not compete with younger men emotionally. He does not chase youthful trends desperately. He does not fear aging. And because he does not fear it, he becomes attractive. Confidence is not pretending to be something else. Confidence is being completely comfortable with what you already are. That energy creates emotional safety. And emotional safety, mixed with masculine certainty, creates attraction. But insecurity destroys this instantly. A younger woman may not consciously say, "He's trying too hard," but emotionally, she feels it. And attraction is emotional before logical. Think about this carefully. Why are some older men naturally magnetic without even trying? Because they move differently, speak differently, react differently. There is calmness in them, patience, control, grounded energy. They are not seeking permission to exist. And that grounded masculine energy becomes rare in modern society, especially today, where many people desperately perform for attention online every second. Now here's where this becomes dangerous psychologically. The more insecure a man feels about aging, the more emotionally reactive he becomes. He begins seeking reassurance constantly, fishing for compliments, comparing himself with younger men, trying to prove his worth excessively. And women can feel this emotional instability immediately, not through words, through energy, because emotional desperation leaks into behavior, into body language, into conversations, into decisions. Marcus Aurelius once wrote that external things are not the problem. The problem is our judgment about them. Age itself is not unattractive. Fear of aging is. An older man who fears becoming irrelevant unconsciously destroys his own presence. But a man who embraces maturity becomes powerful. Because maturity, when combined with emotional discipline, creates something younger men often lack: depth. And depth is magnetic. A younger woman may enjoy excitement from younger men temporarily, but emotional depth creates unforgettable impact. The ability to remain calm under pressure, the ability to lead emotionally, the ability to stay composed during chaos. These qualities become increasingly attractive over time, and most older men lose these advantages trying to imitate youth instead of mastering maturity. That is the tragedy. They already possess the very thing that could make them stand out, but insecurity blinds them. Pattern interrupt. Imagine two men walking into the same room. One is loud immediately, trying to impress everyone, over-talking, over-joking, over-performing. The second man says little, but his presence feels calm, grounded, unshaken. People naturally notice him without understanding why. That second man understands Stoicism. He understands emotional gravity, and gravity attracts naturally. The first man chases attention. The second man commands respect silently. A younger woman feels this difference instantly, even if she cannot explain it logically, because feminine psychology naturally responds to emotional certainty, not forced performance. This is why trying too hard to appear young kills attraction, because it communicates hidden insecurity instead of grounded masculinity. And insecurity is emotionally exhausting. The older man who truly wins is not the one pretending to be younger. It is the one fully comfortable being older. That confidence changes everything. And this leads directly into habit number 2. Talking too much about money, status, or success. This one silently destroys emotional attraction every single day. And many older men genuinely believe it creates admiration. They assume younger women are automatically impressed by constant displays of success. So conversations become performances. Every discussion somehow returns to business. Cars, investments, connections, achievements, expensive experiences, financial power. At first glance, this seems logical. Society constantly tells men their value comes from status. So naturally, many men begin using success as their main emotional identity. But here is what they fail to understand psychologically. Attraction is not built through constant self-advertisement. True attraction grows through emotional experience. And when a man constantly talks about his status, something strange happens emotionally. Instead of appearing powerful, he begins appearing emotionally dependent on external validation. This is where Stoicism exposes modern insecurity beautifully. Stoic philosophy teaches that external possessions mean nothing without inner control. A man who constantly needs others to recognize his value is not powerful internally. He is dependent emotionally, and dependence weakens presence. A younger woman may appreciate ambition. She may admire success. But if every interaction feels like an interview about your achievements, emotional tension disappears. Because there is no mystery anymore. No emotional depth. No grounded human connection. Only performance. And performance creates emotional distance. Many older men confuse attraction with qualification. They think, if I prove my value enough, she will feel attracted. But attraction does not work like a job application. Human emotion is far deeper than logic. People are moved by emotional energy, by how someone makes them feel, by emotional presence, not endless self-promotion. This is why some wealthy men still struggle deeply with attraction and relationships. Money can create access, but it cannot create genuine emotional connection. And younger women especially can sense when a man uses status to compensate for emotional insecurity. That feeling creates resistance internally. because it feels transactional instead of authentic. Now pay attention to this carefully. The truly confident man rarely needs to announce his value constantly. His energy speaks before his words do. You see it in how calmly he moves, how relaxed he remains, how little he seeks approval, how unaffected he is by needing attention. That restraint creates intrigue, and intrigue creates attraction. Stoicism teaches restraint because restraint communicates power. Anyone can speak endlessly about themselves. Few people can remain grounded without needing validation. That grounded silence creates psychological curiosity, and curiosity keeps attraction alive. Habit number 1: trying too hard to look young. This habit destroys attraction faster than most older men realize. And ironically, it usually begins with fear. Fear of aging, fear of becoming irrelevant, fear of being compared to younger men. So instead of embracing maturity with confidence, the man begins performing youth emotionally. He changes the way he talks, forces modern slang into conversations, dresses in ways that feel unnatural to him, tries too hard to appear cool, overacts, overjokes, overexplains, overperforms. And younger women notice this immediately, not logically, emotionally, because women are constantly reading emotional energy beneath behavior. A younger woman can feel when a man is comfortable within himself, and she can also feel when he is secretly seeking validation. That emotional insecurity changes everything. At first, she may smile politely, she may laugh, she may entertain the behavior, but deep inside, something starts weakening emotionally. Because true masculine presence comes from self-acceptance, not performance, not imitation, not desperation. This is where Stoicism becomes powerful. Stoic philosophy teaches acceptance of reality instead of resistance against it. An older man who fully accepts his age becomes emotionally grounded. He stops competing with younger men, stops chasing trends desperately, stops apologizing for his maturity. And because he accepts himself fully, he becomes naturally attractive. Confidence is not pretending to be younger. Confidence is being fully comfortable with who you already are. That energy creates emotional stability. And emotional stability is magnetic, especially today, because modern society is filled with emotional performance. Everyone is trying to impress, trying to go viral, trying to seek approval, trying to be noticed. But the grounded man, he moves differently, calmly, slowly, with certainty. And certainty creates attraction. Marcus Aurelius once wrote that external things are not the problem, but our judgment about them. Age is not unattractive. Fear of aging is. An older man who fears becoming irrelevant unconsciously weakens his own masculine energy. But a man who embraces maturity radiates strength. Because maturity brings advantages younger men often lack. Patience, emotional control, life experience, calmness under pressure, depth. And depth creates emotional impact. A younger woman may enjoy excitement temporarily, but emotional depth creates unforgettable attraction. That's why trying too hard to look young kills desire. Because it communicates insecurity instead of masculine certainty. And insecurity always weakens attraction. Think about this carefully. Why do some older men walk into a room and instantly command attention without trying? They are not loud, not desperate, not overperforming, yet everyone notices them. Because grounded masculine energy speaks before words do. And younger women feel that energy immediately. Habit number 2: talking too much about money and status. This habit silently destroys emotional attraction every single day. And many older men genuinely believe it makes them more desirable. They think success alone creates attraction. So every conversation becomes a performance. They constantly mention business, cars, investments, expensive experiences, connections, achievements, luxury. At first glance, this seems logical. Society constantly tells men that their value comes from status. So naturally, Many men begin building their identity entirely around success. But psychologically, this creates a hidden problem. Attraction is emotional before logical. And when a man constantly advertises his value, he unconsciously communicates insecurity. Because truly confident people rarely need constant recognition. This is where Stoicism exposes modern weakness beautifully. Stoicism teaches that external possessions mean nothing without inner control. A man who constantly needs others to validate his success is emotionally dependent. And emotional dependence weakens masculine presence. A younger woman may admire ambition. She may respect success. But if every conversation feels like a business presentation, emotional tension disappears. Because mystery disappears. Depth disappears. Connection disappears. Now she no longer feels emotion. She only feels performance. And performance creates emotional distance. Many older men confuse attraction with qualification. They believe, if I prove my value enough, she will become attracted. But attraction doesn't work like a resume. Human beings connect emotionally. Through energy. Through emotional experience. Through presence. Not endless self-promotion. That's why some wealthy men still struggle deeply with relationships. Money can create access, but it cannot create emotional connection. And younger women especially can sense when a man uses money to compensate for emotional emptiness. That feeling creates resistance internally, because it feels transactional instead of authentic. The truly confident man rarely announces his value constantly. His calmness already reveals it. You can see it in how relaxed he is, how little he seeks approval, how unaffected he is by needing attention. That emotional restraint creates intrigue, and intrigue creates attraction. A lion never needs to remind the jungle he is powerful. His presence already communicates it. The same is true for masculine energy. The more a man tries to prove himself constantly, the weaker he appears emotionally. Habit number 3, becoming too emotionally available too fast. This habit destroys mystery almost instantly, and most men think they are being loving when they do it. An older man meets a younger woman he genuinely likes. Suddenly, she becomes the center of his emotional world. Constant texting, constant attention, constant reassurance, constant availability. He begins prioritizing her too quickly, and without realizing it, emotional tension dies. Because attraction needs space to breathe. This is one of the deepest psychological truths about relationships. People value what feels emotionally balanced, not emotionally overwhelming. When a man becomes overly available too early, he unconsciously communicates emotional dependency. And emotional dependency creates pressure, especially for younger women. Because now the interaction no longer feels exciting. It feels emotionally heavy, predictable, needy. And neediness suffocates attraction faster than almost anything else. Stoicism teaches emotional discipline, not emotional coldness. Discipline. A Stoic man understands the importance of emotional balance. He does not abandon his purpose the moment he feels attraction. He does not lose himself inside emotional excitement. He maintains his routines, his goals, his peace, his direction, and that emotional stability creates respect. Many older men become overly invested too quickly because they fear losing the opportunity. So they overgive emotionally. Overtext, overpursue, overattach, and ironically, this creates the exact outcome they fear. Loss of attraction, because desperate energy always leaks through behavior, through tone, through reactions, through emotional urgency. And younger women feel this immediately, not through logic, through emotional instinct. The most attractive men are not emotionally unavailable. They are emotionally grounded. There is a huge difference. An emotionally unavailable man avoids connection. A grounded man enjoys connection without losing himself inside it. That balance creates masculine strength, and masculine strength creates emotional attraction. Imagine pouring water into a glass slowly. The tension builds naturally. Now imagine dumping the entire bucket instantly. There is no tension anymore. No anticipation. No emotional rhythm. That's exactly what happens when a man gives too much emotional energy too fast. Habit number 4. Seeking constant validation from her. This habit quietly destroys masculine presence from the inside. And many older men don't even realize they're doing it, because it doesn't always look obvious. Sometimes it appears in subtle ways. Fishing for compliments. Constantly asking if she still likes him. Needing reassurance about his looks, his age, his value, his importance in her life. At first, these behaviors may seem harmless, human, normal, but psychologically, something dangerous begins happening underneath the surface. The emotional leadership shifts. Now the man is no longer emotionally grounded within himself. He becomes emotionally dependent on her reactions. Her mood controls his confidence. Her attention controls his peace. Her approval controls his emotional state. And once that happens, attraction begins weakening silently. Because feminine psychology naturally responds to emotional strength and grounded certainty. Not arrogance, not emotional coldness. Certainty. A younger woman wants to feel that the man is emotionally stable within himself, that he values himself whether she praises him or not, that his identity is not hanging on her validation every day. This is one of the deepest lessons in Stoicism. True confidence comes from internal control, not external approval. Epictetus taught that when you depend on external things for peace, you become emotionally enslaved. And many men unknowingly become slaves to female validation. Every text affects their mood. Every delayed reply creates anxiety. Every emotional shift creates panic. And women can feel this emotional instability immediately, not through words, through energy, because validation-seeking behavior leaks into everything. The tone of your voice, the way you text, the way you react, the way you overanalyze, the way you chase reassurance constantly. And slowly, attraction turns into emotional exhaustion. A younger woman may still care about him, still appreciate him, but emotionally, she stops feeling tension, because tension requires emotional polarity. And polarity disappears when a man constantly seeks emotional certainty from her. Now pay attention carefully. The most attractive men are not obsessed with being chosen. They appreciate connection, but they are not emotionally starving for approval. That energy creates calmness, and calmness creates attraction. A grounded older man understands this deeply. He compliments naturally, expresses affection naturally, shows interest naturally, but he does not beg emotionally for reassurance every day, because he already respects himself internally. And self-respect changes masculine energy completely. This is why some men become more attractive with age, while others become emotionally weak despite success. One man becomes emotionally centered, the other becomes emotionally dependent. And dependency silently kills attraction. Think about this carefully. Why do people naturally respect individuals who remain calm under emotional pressure? Because emotional control creates psychological safety. A man who collapses emotionally every time he feels uncertain cannot lead emotionally. And leadership is deeply connected to attraction. Habit number 5. Losing his purpose after entering the relationship. This habit destroys attraction slowly, but brutally. At first, the relationship feels exciting. The older man feels alive again, inspired again, emotionally connected again, and without realizing it, he slowly abandons himself. His routines disappear. His discipline weakens. His mission fades. His ambition decreases. Now his entire emotional world begins revolving around the relationship. And this creates one of the most dangerous dynamics in attraction psychology. The woman slowly becomes his purpose. At first, she may enjoy the attention, but over time, something changes emotionally. Because women are naturally attracted to men who possess direction, drive, purpose, vision. A man who wakes up with goals beyond emotional attachment. When that masculine direction disappears, attraction weakens. Because purpose creates masculine gravity. A man obsessed only with the relationship eventually loses emotional depth. Now every conversation revolves around feelings, attention, reassurance, relationship maintenance, and slowly, emotional excitement fades. Stoicism teaches something powerful here. A man must never abandon his inner mission for temporary emotional comfort. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire while practicing emotional discipline daily. He understood that purpose stabilizes the mind, and purpose stabilizes masculine energy. Without purpose, men become emotionally reactive, overattached, needy, lost. This is why many relationships fail after the honeymoon phase. Not because attraction magically disappeared, but because the man stopped becoming the version of himself she originally admired. He stopped growing, stopped leading himself, stopped challenging himself, stopped evolving. Now his emotional energy becomes stagnant, and stagnant energy kills attraction. A younger woman may not consciously explain it this way, but emotionally, she begins feeling less inspired by him. Because masculine energy thrives through movement, through ambition, through direction. The most attractive older men never stop building themselves. Even while deeply in love, they continue improving physically, mentally, financially, spiritually, emotionally, not because they fear losing her, but because growth is part of who they are, and that energy remains magnetic. Many men make the mistake of turning relationships into emotional retirement homes. They stop pursuing greatness, stop sharpening themselves, stop evolving, and then they wonder why attraction faded. The answer is painful. Comfort weakened their masculine edge. Stoicism warns against this constantly. Comfort can become dangerous when it destroys discipline. The disciplined man remains grounded even during emotional happiness. He enjoys love without becoming consumed by it, and that balance creates long-term attraction. Imagine meeting a man whose entire world revolves around one person. Now imagine meeting a man with vision, purpose, direction, and emotional balance. Which one feels more powerful instantly? Exactly. Purpose creates presence, and presence creates attraction. Habit number 6. Becoming controlling and overprotective. This habit begins with fear. Fear of losing her. Fear of younger competition. Fear of betrayal. Fear of abandonment. And slowly, fear transforms into control. The older man starts monitoring everything, questioning constantly, checking excessively, overreacting emotionally, trying to manage her behavior, trying to control outcomes, trying to secure certainty. But here's the psychological truth most men ignore. Control destroys emotional freedom, and emotional freedom is essential for attraction. The more controlling a man becomes, the more emotionally trapped the woman feels. At first, she may tolerate it, especially if she respects him. But internally, emotional resistance begins building, because attraction cannot breathe inside emotional suffocation. This is where insecure attachment destroys masculine energy completely. A fearful man tries to control people. A grounded man controls himself. That is Stoicism. Stoicism teaches mastery over your own mind, not domination over others. You cannot control another human being completely. You cannot force loyalty, cannot force love, cannot force emotional certainty. Trying to do so only destroys peace. And ironically, fear-driven control often pushes people away faster. Because controlling behavior communicates hidden insecurity. It tells her, "I am afraid I am not enough." And insecurity weakens attraction immediately. Now understand this carefully. Leadership is not control. True masculine leadership creates emotional safety without emotional imprisonment. A grounded older man does not panic every time uncertainty appears. He observes calmly, communicates calmly, maintains boundaries calmly, But he does not become emotionally paranoid. Many younger women initially admire protective masculine energy, but there is a line where protection becomes control. And once that line is crossed, attraction begins dying silently, because nobody wants to feel emotionally trapped. The strongest men understand this deeply. They do not try to dominate everything externally. They master themselves internally. Their emotions, their reactions, their fears, their impulses. And self-mastery creates calm power. That calm power becomes magnetic, especially today, where emotional chaos has become normal. A younger woman feels safe around a man who remains emotionally composed, not emotionally controlling. There is a huge difference. One creates trust, the other creates tension. And tension built from fear eventually destroys intimacy. The tighter someone squeezes sand in their hand, the faster it slips away. Relationships work the same way. Desperation to control often destroys the very thing a person fears losing. Habit number 7. Losing emotional control during conflict. This is the habit that destroys attraction faster than almost anything else. And it reveals the true emotional strength of a man instantly. Because anyone can appear calm during easy moments. Real character appears during emotional pressure, during arguments, disrespect, conflict, disappointment, stress. This is where many older men lose everything emotionally, not because of the argument itself, but because of how they react. Shouting, exploding emotionally, insulting, begging, threatening, becoming emotionally unstable. And the moment emotional self-control disappears, masculine presence weakens immediately. A younger woman may forgive words, but emotionally, she remembers the energy, the instability, the emotional chaos. And once a man loses emotional composure repeatedly, respect begins fading silently. Because emotional discipline is deeply connected to masculine strength. Stoicism teaches that external events do not control us. Our reactions do. A weak man reacts impulsively. A strong man responds intentionally. That difference changes relationships completely. Now, this does not mean suppressing emotion. Stoicism is not emotional numbness. It is emotional mastery. A Stoic man still feels anger, pain, disappointment, but he refuses to let emotion control his behavior. Because once emotions control behavior, destruction follows. Many older men believe emotional explosions prove passion. But psychologically, emotional instability creates emotional danger. And emotional danger weakens attraction. A younger woman wants to feel emotional safety around a man, not fear his reactions constantly. This is why calmness under pressure becomes magnetic. The grounded man listens before reacting, thinks before speaking, breathes before exploding. And that emotional restraint communicates enormous strength, especially today, because modern society rewards impulsiveness constantly. Instant reactions, instant outrage, instant emotional chaos. But the man who remains calm becomes rare, and rarity creates value. Now imagine two men during conflict. One immediately loses control emotionally. The other remains calm, focused, emotionally grounded. Which man instantly feels more masculine? Exactly. Because emotional control communicates power, not fake alpha behavior. Real power. The power to master oneself. And self-mastery is the foundation of Stoicism. The dangerous truth most men never realize. Now here's the part nobody tells older men. Attraction rarely dies all at once. It dies psychologically first, silently, invisible to the eyes. A younger woman may still smile, still reply, still spend time with him. But emotionally, something has already shifted. The tension weakens. The admiration decreases. The emotional excitement fades slowly. And most men completely miss the signs because they focus only on surface behavior. But attraction lives beneath behavior, inside emotional perception, inside energy, inside psychological response. This is why some men are shocked when a relationship suddenly ends. To them, everything seemed normal. But emotionally, the relationship had been declining for months, maybe longer. And usually, it wasn't because of age. It was because masculine presence slowly disappeared. The grounded energy she originally admired became emotional neediness. Certainty became insecurity. Leadership became control. Depth became emotional heaviness. And little by little, attraction faded. This is why Stoicism matters so much today. Because Stoicism protects masculine energy from emotional self-destruction, not through emotional coldness, but through discipline, awareness, self-control, purpose, and inner peace. Most modern men are emotionally reactive. Everything controls them. Social media, validation, attention, fear, loneliness, women, rejection, approval. But the Stoic man becomes emotionally centered. And centered men become unforgettable. Listen carefully. A younger woman is not always searching for perfection. She is searching for emotional experience. How a man makes her feel psychologically. Safe, inspired, calm, excited, grounded. And most attraction is created long before physical intimacy. It begins through emotional energy. Why some older men become more attractive with age. This is where everything changes. Because while some older men destroy attraction through emotional weakness, others become dangerously attractive over time. Not because they chase harder, not because they try to look younger, but because they evolve differently. They become calmer, sharper, more emotionally disciplined, more selective, more purposeful, less reactive, less needy, more grounded within themselves. And younger women feel this difference instantly, because grounded masculine energy feels rare now. Most people today are emotionally chaotic, constantly seeking attention, constantly reacting emotionally, constantly chasing validation. But the emotionally disciplined man stands out immediately. His energy feels stable, peaceful, strong, and strength creates attraction. Think about the older man who walks into a room calmly. He doesn't compete for attention, doesn't overtalk, doesn't seek approval, yet everyone notices him. Why? Because presence is powerful, and presence comes from internal stability. This is what Stoicism creates. A man who is no longer emotionally controlled by external things. A man who remains grounded regardless of circumstances. And younger women often crave this emotional stability deeply, especially if they've experienced emotionally immature men before. Because emotional chaos becomes exhausting eventually. At first, excitement may feel attractive, but over time, people crave peace, depth, safety, consistency. And the older man who masters emotional discipline becomes extremely magnetic. Not flashy, magnetic. There's a difference. Flash attracts attention temporarily. Grounded energy creates emotional attachment. That's why some men become more attractive with age while others become invisible emotionally. One evolves internally. The other collapses emotionally, trying to hold on to youth. The psychology of masculine presence. Most people misunderstand attraction completely. They think attraction is mostly physical. Looks, money, status, style. But psychology reveals something deeper. Emotional presence matters enormously, especially for long-term attraction. Masculine presence is difficult to explain logically, but instantly felt emotionally. It's the feeling of emotional stability around a man. The feeling that he is grounded within himself. That he is not emotionally chaotic, not desperate, not unstable, not approval-seeking. And this feeling changes how women respond emotionally around him. A younger woman relaxes differently around emotionally grounded masculine energy because she senses calm leadership, not forced dominance. Leadership, and leadership is deeply psychological. The grounded man does not need to control the room loudly. His energy already shapes the atmosphere. This is why silence can become powerful. Why emotional restraint creates mystery. Why calmness during conflict creates respect. Most older men destroy masculine presence by becoming emotionally reactive, over-explaining, over-chasing, over-controlling, over-seeking reassurance. And these behaviors weaken emotional polarity. Stoicism protects against this, because Stoicism teaches internal mastery first. The Stoic man understands something deeply important. You cannot control other people, but you can control yourself. And self-control changes masculine energy completely. The way you speak changes. The way you react changes. The way you handle pressure changes. And women notice this immediately, not consciously at first, emotionally. Because emotional intelligence reads energy before logic catches up. Imagine being around someone emotionally unstable for 1 week. Now imagine being around someone calm, grounded, disciplined, and emotionally centered. Your nervous system immediately feels the difference. That's the hidden power of masculine presence. Why emotional neediness destroys attraction. This is one of the most important psychological truths in relationships. Neediness kills attraction because it creates emotional pressure, and pressure destroys freedom. Many older men become emotionally needy without realizing it. Not because they are weak men originally, but because loneliness slowly changes their behavior, especially after divorce, heartbreak, years of emotional isolation. Suddenly, when a younger woman enters their life, they become emotionally overwhelmed. Now everything revolves around her attention, her replies, her moods, her availability, and slowly, emotional dependency forms. This is where attraction starts dying, because emotional dependency communicates fear. Fear of loss, fear of abandonment, fear of not being enough, and fear leaks into behavior constantly. A needy man overpursues, overthinks, overreacts, overgives, overanalyzes, and younger women feel emotionally suffocated by this energy eventually, not because caring is unattractive, but because emotional desperation creates imbalance. Stoicism teaches emotional independence, not emotional isolation. Independence. A Stoic man enjoys connection deeply, but his emotional stability does not collapse without constant reassurance. That balance creates attraction, because emotional groundedness feels safe. A younger woman wants to feel chosen, not emotionally responsible for holding a man together psychologically. And many men accidentally place that burden on women. Now she must constantly reassure him, constantly stabilize him emotionally, constantly protect his confidence. And eventually, exhaustion appears. This is why emotionally disciplined men stand out immediately. They are connected emotionally without becoming emotionally dependent. That creates freedom inside the relationship, and freedom keeps attraction alive longer. The silent power of detachment. Now this part is dangerous, because most people misunderstand detachment completely. Detachment is not coldness, not emotional avoidance, not pretending not to care. Real Stoic detachment means maintaining emotional control regardless of outcomes. This changes everything psychologically. A detached man loves deeply, but he does not lose himself emotionally. He enjoys connection, but he does not worship it. He values relationships, but his identity remains intact without them. That emotional balance becomes incredibly attractive. Why? Because desperation disappears. And when desperation disappears, masculine presence increases naturally. A younger woman feels calmer around a man who is emotionally grounded within himself, because his energy feels stable, predictable emotionally, strong, not unstable and reactive constantly. This is why some men become more attractive after breakups. Pain forces them inward, forces reflection, forces discipline, and eventually they become calmer, wiser, stronger emotionally. The breakup becomes transformation. But weak men respond differently. They panic emotionally, beg, chase, collapse psychologically, and their masculine presence disappears completely. Stoicism teaches something brutally important here. You must never place your entire identity inside another human being. Because people are uncertain. Life is uncertain. Relationships are uncertain. Only your character truly belongs to you. And character becomes your greatest strength. Think carefully. Why do people often return emotionally after someone stops chasing them? Because emotional desperation disappeared, and emotional stability became visible again. The modern trap destroying many older men. Modern culture constantly pressures men to seek validation externally. Social media, attention, approval, status, likes, women, recognition. Everything teaches men to measure their value through external reactions. And this destroys inner peace completely. Now the man becomes emotionally dependent on being admired constantly. Without attention, he feels empty. Without validation, he feels insecure. Without female approval, he questions his worth. This creates psychological weakness. And younger women sense this immediately, because truly masculine energy feels internally grounded, not externally dependent. This is why Stoicism feels so powerful today. It teaches men to reclaim inner stability, to stop chasing external control, to stop seeking constant validation, to stop abandoning themselves emotionally. Marcus Aurelius practiced this daily while leading an empire. Imagine the pressure he carried. Yet he constantly reminded himself that external opinions could not define his inner peace. That mindset creates emotional strength, and emotional strength creates attraction. A younger woman naturally feels drawn toward a man who remains emotionally centered under pressure, because stability feels rare, especially today, where emotional impulsiveness dominates modern relationships. Most people react instantly, explode instantly, seek attention instantly, but the Stoic man slows down, observes, thinks, responds intentionally, and intentional energy creates depth. The most attractive thing an older man can do, it's not chasing harder, not pretending to be younger, not showing more money, not controlling more, not seeking constant reassurance. The most attractive thing an older man can do is become deeply grounded within himself. That changes everything. When a man respects himself deeply, his energy shifts. He stops tolerating disrespect, stops over-pursuing, stops abandoning his purpose, stops begging emotionally for attention. And suddenly, people respond differently to him. Because self-respect changes presence. A grounded older man understands this deeply. He values peace more than emotional chaos, purpose more than validation, discipline more than impulsiveness, growth more than performance, and that energy becomes magnetic naturally, especially to younger women searching for emotional depth in a shallow world. Why younger women crave emotional depth more than men realize. Most older men misunderstand what younger women are truly searching for emotionally. They assume attraction is mostly about excitement, looks, money, luxury, status. And yes, those things can create temporary attention. But attention is not the same as emotional connection. This is where many men fail, because they spend so much energy trying to impress that they completely forget how to create emotional depth. And emotional depth is what creates lasting attraction. A younger woman may enjoy fun temporarily, but eventually, she begins craving something deeper psychologically. A man who feels emotionally stable, a man who feels emotionally safe, a man who listens without insecurity, a man who doesn't panic emotionally every time uncertainty appears, a man whose presence feels calming instead of exhausting. And this is exactly where emotionally disciplined older men become incredibly attractive. Not because they are perfect, but because they feel grounded. Think about modern dating today. Everything feels fast, superficial, emotionally unstable. People ghost each other, lie to each other, use each other emotionally. Attention spans are destroyed. Validation addiction is everywhere. And inside all this chaos, emotionally grounded masculine energy becomes rare. Rare things become valuable. This is why some younger women become deeply drawn toward older men who possess emotional maturity. Not fake maturity, real emotional control. The kind that remains calm under pressure. The kind that doesn't collapse emotionally during conflict. The kind that protects peace instead of creating emotional chaos constantly. That energy creates emotional safety. And emotional safety creates attachment. Most men completely underestimate this. They think attraction is mostly visual. But long-term attraction is deeply psychological. A woman remembers how a man made her nervous system feel. Calm, anxious, safe, unstable, grounded, drained. These emotional experiences become memories, and memories shape attraction over time. This is why emotionally unstable men often create temporary excitement, but struggle with long-term emotional respect, because chaos exhausts people eventually. At first, emotional unpredictability may feel exciting, but over time, people begin craving peace, depth, consistency, and the emotionally disciplined older man naturally provides this when he truly masters himself internally. Listen carefully. The world is filled with loud men, but calm men. Calm men are rare, and rarity creates a psychological attraction immediately. Why confidence without peace is fake. Many older men try to project confidence externally, but internally, they are emotionally restless. And younger women feel this contradiction immediately. This is one of the biggest psychological mistakes men make. They think confidence means acting dominant loudly, talking louder, showing more money, being emotionally unavailable, pretending not to care. But real confidence feels peaceful, not forced. A truly confident man does not constantly try to prove himself, because he already knows who he is. That inner certainty changes his entire energy. His body language changes. His reactions change. His emotional stability changes. And this affects attraction deeply. A younger woman can sense when a man is pretending. She can feel when confidence is actually insecurity wearing expensive clothing. And insecurity always leaks eventually, especially through emotional reactions. This is why Stoicism matters so much. Stoicism builds internal confidence instead of external performance. The Stoic man does not depend on applause emotionally. He does not need constant recognition to feel valuable. He respects himself internally first. That self-respect creates calmness, and calmness creates power. One of the most attractive qualities in an older man is emotional composure. The ability to remain grounded when things become uncertain. The ability to stay calm without becoming emotionally cold. The ability to handle rejection without collapsing psychologically. That kind of emotional strength feels rare today, because modern culture rewards emotional impulsiveness constantly. Everything is reaction-based. Instant anger, instant validation, instant attention, instant emotional chaos. But the emotionally disciplined man slows everything down. And that grounded pace creates masculine gravity. This is why some men command respect naturally without speaking much. Their nervous system feels stable, and people emotionally respond to stability automatically, especially younger women who may have experienced emotional inconsistency from emotionally immature men before. The calm man stands out instantly, not because he tries to dominate attention, but because peace itself becomes magnetic. The invisible difference between wisdom and control. This part is extremely important, because many older men confuse leadership with control, and this misunderstanding silently destroys attraction. A wise older man guides calmly. A controlling man pressures emotionally. There is a huge difference. Control usually comes from fear. Fear of losing her. Fear of competition. Fear of uncertainty. Fear of betrayal. And fear changes masculine energy completely. The controlling man becomes tense emotionally, suspicious, reactive, overprotective, overbearing, and eventually, emotionally exhausting. A younger woman may tolerate this behavior initially, especially if she admires him. But over time, emotional resistance begins growing internally. Because attraction needs emotional freedom, not emotional imprisonment. This is why Stoicism teaches self-mastery instead of controlling others. The Stoic man understands something powerful. You cannot control another human being completely. Trying to do so destroys peace and destroys attraction. The strongest men focus on controlling themselves, their emotions, their impulses, their reactions, their fears. And self-control creates calm masculine leadership naturally, not fake alpha dominance. Real grounded leadership. A younger woman feels emotionally safer around a man who controls himself than a man constantly trying to control her. Because emotional self-control communicates inner strength, while controlling behavior communicates hidden insecurity. This is one reason emotionally disciplined men age so well psychologically. Their energy becomes calmer over time instead of more desperate. And calm masculine energy becomes increasingly attractive with maturity. Weak men try to control women. Strong men control themselves. That single truth changes everything about attraction. Why silence becomes attractive. One of the most misunderstood aspects of masculine energy is silence. Most men are terrified of silence, so they constantly fill space emotionally. Talking too much, explaining too much, texting too much, seeking reassurance too much, trying too hard to maintain emotional attention constantly. And this destroys mystery completely. Mystery is deeply connected to attraction psychologically, because mystery creates curiosity, and curiosity keeps emotional tension alive. Now, this does not mean becoming emotionally unavailable. It means becoming emotionally disciplined. There is enormous power in a man who speaks intentionally instead of emotionally compulsively. A younger woman notices this immediately, because most people today overshare constantly. Everything is public. Every emotion is announced instantly online. Every thought becomes content. Every feeling becomes performance. But the emotionally grounded man remains centered. He doesn't rush emotionally, doesn't panic during silence, doesn't over-explain constantly. And this restraint creates emotional gravity. Marcus Aurelius practiced silence intentionally. He understood that calm observation creates wisdom, and wisdom creates emotional depth. The older man who masters silence feels different psychologically. His words carry weight because he does not speak endlessly for validation. And younger women feel this deeply, because emotional restraint creates mystery. Mystery creates intrigue, and intrigue creates attraction. Now understand something important. Silence is powerful only when it comes from peace, not manipulation, not emotional games. Real grounded silence, the kind that comes from inner calmness, not emotional insecurity. A peaceful man does not fear quiet moments, because he is comfortable within himself, and self-comfort becomes magnetic, especially in modern society where so many people are emotionally uncomfortable being alone with themselves. The real reason many relationships fail. Most relationships do not fail because attraction disappears magically. They fail because emotional discipline disappears. The man stops controlling himself, stops growing, stops leading himself, stops protecting his peace. Now emotional chaos enters the relationship constantly. Neediness, validation seeking, control, emotional instability, and slowly, attraction weakens. This is why self-mastery matters more than surface-level dating techniques. Because attraction is deeply connected to emotional experience. How someone feels around you psychologically. Do they feel calm, safe, inspired, drained, pressured, emotionally responsible for stabilizing you constantly? These emotional experiences shape long-term attraction enormously. And the older man who masters himself internally creates a completely different emotional atmosphere around women, especially younger women seeking depth unconsciously. Because depth feels rare today. The painful mistake many older men make after getting attention. This is where many men destroy everything. Not before attraction begins. After. The moment a younger woman starts showing genuine interest, many older men become emotionally careless. They relax too much internally, not peacefully, emotionally, and without realizing it, they slowly stop being the man she was originally attracted to. At first, he was disciplined, focused, calm, mysterious, purpose-driven, emotionally balanced. But after gaining emotional certainty from her attention, he changes. Now he becomes overly available, emotionally dependent, predictable. His routines disappear. His standards weaken. His emotional control fades. And this is where attraction quietly starts dying. Because attraction is deeply connected to emotional energy. The woman was attracted to the grounded version of him, the disciplined version, the emotionally stable version. But now, she begins feeling emotional heaviness instead. This is why Stoicism constantly teaches self-awareness. A Stoic man never abandons himself because of emotional comfort. He understands something dangerous about human psychology. Comfort can weaken discipline if you become unconscious. And when discipline disappears, masculine presence weakens. This happens in countless relationships. The man becomes emotionally consumed by the relationship itself. Now his happiness depends entirely on her behavior, her attention, her mood, her validation. And emotionally, she begins feeling the pressure, even if he never says it directly, because pressure is felt energetically before words expose it. This is why emotional independence matters so much. A younger woman wants to feel desired, not emotionally responsible for keeping a man psychologically stable every day. There is a huge difference. One creates attraction, the other creates emotional exhaustion. The disciplined older man never stops building himself. Even while deeply in love, he keeps improving mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, because growth is part of his identity. And growth keeps masculine energy alive. Think carefully. The ocean remains powerful because it keeps moving. The moment water becomes stagnant, it loses life. The same thing happens to masculine energy when growth stops. Why emotional discipline is more attractive than charm. Most men spend years trying to become more charming, better lines, better flirting, better techniques, but they completely ignore emotional discipline. And emotional discipline creates far deeper attraction than surface-level charm ever will. Charm can attract attention temporarily, but emotional stability creates emotional attachment. A younger woman may laugh with a charming man, but she feels safe with a disciplined man, and safety creates depth. This is why emotionally grounded older men often leave stronger emotional impressions than younger men who rely purely on excitement. Because emotional discipline changes everything about a man's energy. The way he handles stress, the way he handles uncertainty, the way he handles rejection, the way he handles conflict, the way he handles silence. And women observe these things constantly, even subconsciously. A man who remains calm under pressure communicates enormous psychological strength. Because emotional reactions reveal internal stability. Anyone can appear confident when everything feels easy. Real masculine strength appears during difficulty, during tension, during emotional discomfort. Stoicism teaches that emotions themselves are not the enemy. Lack of control is. That lesson alone can transform a man completely. Many older men become emotionally reactive because they fear losing connection. Fear makes them overpursue, overexplain, overreact. An emotional overreaction destroys attraction quickly, but the disciplined man slows down emotionally. He observes first, responds intentionally, protects his peace, and that emotional restraint creates respect automatically, especially today. Because emotional chaos has become normalized, most people cannot regulate themselves emotionally anymore. Everything triggers them. Everything controls their mood. Everything controls their identity. But the grounded man becomes rare, and rare men become unforgettable. The hidden power of not needing to impress. One of the most attractive qualities in an older man is quiet confidence. Not loud confidence, quiet confidence. The kind that doesn't constantly seek attention. The kind that doesn't force itself into every conversation. The kind that doesn't desperately need to prove value. That energy feels powerful psychologically because it communicates self-acceptance. Most men try too hard to impress because they secretly fear not being enough. So every interaction becomes performance, trying to sound smarter, richer, more successful, more dominant, more interesting. And younger women can feel this performance immediately, even if they cannot explain it logically, because emotional intelligence reads authenticity faster than words. This is why Stoicism teaches detachment from external validation. The Stoic man does not need everyone's approval to feel valuable. And because he does not chase approval, he naturally appears more confident. Ironically, the less a man tries to impress emotionally, the more emotionally intriguing he becomes. Because calm confidence creates mystery, and mystery creates attraction. Think about the most emotionally powerful people you've ever met. They probably weren't the loudest people in the room. They carried themselves calmly, spoke intentionally, moved without emotional desperation. That energy changes how people respond psychologically. A younger woman feels calmer around that type of man, more feminine, more emotionally relaxed, because his grounded energy stabilizes the interaction naturally. And emotional stability is deeply attractive, especially in modern dating culture where emotional instability dominates almost everything. A mountain never chases attention, yet everyone notices its presence. That's the difference between performance and grounded masculine energy. Why many men become emotionally weak after success. This truth surprises many people. Success does not automatically create emotional strength. Sometimes it creates emotional weakness, because many men build their identity entirely around external success. Money, status, recognition, power, and over time, they unconsciously begin depending on those things emotionally. Now their confidence becomes fragile internally. If attention decreases, they panic. If admiration decreases, they feel insecure. If a younger woman loses interest, their emotional world collapses. This is why some successful older men become emotionally needy despite appearing powerful externally. Because external success cannot replace inner peace. Stoicism teaches this repeatedly. A man who cannot control himself internally remains emotionally vulnerable regardless of wealth. Marcus Aurelius ruled Rome itself. Yet he constantly reminded himself not to become controlled by ego, praise, or external validation. That level of self-awareness creates emotional freedom. And emotional freedom changes masculine energy completely. The emotionally free man does not cling desperately, does not panic emotionally, does not seek constant reassurance, because his self-worth is internally rooted. And internally rooted men create emotional safety naturally. A younger woman feels this difference immediately. One man feels emotionally hungry, the other feels emotionally full. And emotionally full energy becomes magnetic, because it creates emotional relaxation. There is no pressure to constantly reassure him, no pressure to constantly stabilize him emotionally. Now the relationship feels lighter, safer, healthier, and emotional health creates long-term attraction. Why purpose is essential for masculine energy. A man without purpose eventually becomes emotionally lost. This is one of the deepest truths in masculine psychology. Purpose stabilizes masculine energy. Without purpose, men drift emotionally. They overfocus on relationships, overfocus on validation, overfocus on external attention, and slowly, emotional neediness develops. This is why some men become emotionally obsessive after entering relationships. The relationship became their entire emotional identity. And when a relationship becomes a man's only source of meaning, pressure appears instantly. Stoicism protects against this by teaching men to build inner direction first. A Stoic man has goals beyond romance, vision beyond validation, discipline beyond emotion, and this makes him emotionally grounded. A younger woman naturally feels attracted to a man moving towards something meaningful, because purpose creates direction. Direction creates certainty, and certainty creates masculine presence. The older man who keeps evolving remains attractive psychologically, because movement creates life, growth creates energy, but the stagnant man slowly loses emotional sharpness. Now he becomes passive, emotionally dependent, predictable, and attraction weakens. This is why emotionally disciplined men continue growing even during relationships. Not because they fear losing women, because growth is part of who they are, and that internal drive becomes deeply attractive over time. The difference between love and attachment. Most men confuse these two completely. Love is healthy. Attachment becomes dangerous when it destroys self-control. A man deeply in love can still remain emotionally grounded, but an emotionally attached man loses himself completely. Now everything controls him emotionally. Her mood, her texts, her attention, her validation, and slowly, masculine presence weakens. Stoicism teaches emotional balance. To care deeply without becoming emotionally enslaved. That balance creates healthy masculine energy. A younger woman feels emotionally safe around a man who loves deeply but remains grounded within himself, because his emotional stability feels secure, not suffocating, not controlling, not desperate, secure. And secure masculine energy creates long-term attraction far more effectively than emotional intensity alone. Why many younger women test older men emotionally. Most men misunderstand emotional tests completely. They think women test men because they enjoy playing games. But psychologically, emotional tests usually reveal something deeper. A younger woman is often trying to understand one thing unconsciously. How emotionally stable is this man really? Because words mean very little over time. Anyone can sound confident temporarily. Anyone can appear calm during easy moments. But pressure reveals emotional truth. And many younger women observe older men carefully during emotional tension. Not because they hate them, because they are searching for emotional certainty. They want to know, will this man remain grounded during conflict? Will he become emotionally reactive? Will he panic during uncertainty? Will he lose control when challenged emotionally? Will he collapse when things stop feeling perfect? And this is where many older men fail unexpectedly. Not because they lack intelligence, not because they lack success, but because emotional discipline was never truly developed internally. So the moment tension appears, their emotional stability disappears. They become defensive, reactive, controlling, emotionally impulsive, and the younger woman suddenly sees a completely different version of him. This is why Stoicism becomes so powerful in relationships. Stoicism prepares a man emotionally for uncertainty, for discomfort, for emotional tension. The Stoic man understands something most people never master. You cannot control every emotional situation, but you can control your response. That single truth changes masculine energy completely. The emotionally disciplined older man does not panic during emotional discomfort. He slows down internally, observes calmly, responds intentionally, and this creates enormous psychological attraction. Because emotional composure under pressure communicates hidden strength, not fake strength, real strength. And real strength always feels different emotionally. A younger woman may challenge a man unconsciously, sometimes simply to see whether his confidence is real or performance. And emotionally reactive men expose themselves quickly because pressure removes masks. This is why calmness becomes magnetic. Not because calm men are emotionless, because calm men are internally regulated. And regulated masculine energy feels safe, strong, stable. Fire reveals the quality of metal. Pressure reveals the quality of character, and relationships reveal emotional maturity faster than almost anything else in life. Why emotional chaos destroys respect. Many men think attraction disappears because of boredom. Sometimes that's true, but often, attraction disappears because emotional chaos destroys respect first. And once respect weakens, attraction slowly follows. This is one of the harshest psychological truths many men avoid. A younger woman can still care about a man emotionally and still lose attraction because his emotional behavior feels unstable. Constant overreacting, constant insecurity, constant emotional inconsistency, constant emotional pressure. Eventually, this creates emotional exhaustion, and exhaustion quietly kills desire. Because attraction thrives inside emotional polarity, not emotional chaos. The emotionally disciplined older man understands the importance of emotional consistency. He does not become unpredictable emotionally every day. One moment calm, one moment explosive, one moment confident, one moment needy. That instability creates psychological tension in the worst possible way. Now the woman begins emotionally protecting herself instead of relaxing into connection. And once emotional safety disappears, attraction weakens naturally. This is why Stoicism values emotional regulation so deeply. The Stoic man does not allow temporary emotions to control permanent behavior. He understands that emotional impulses are temporary, but emotional consequences can last years. Many relationships collapse because men react emotionally without self-awareness. A moment of anger destroys trust. A moment of insecurity destroys respect. A moment of emotional desperation destroys attraction. And sadly, many men realize this only after damage is already done. But the grounded man becomes different. He learns emotional restraint, not suppression, restraint. There is enormous power in a man who can feel strong emotion, yet still remain composed externally. That energy communicates maturity, and maturity becomes deeply attractive with age, especially compared to emotional instability. Why some men become more attractive after heartbreak. This part is fascinating psychologically, because heartbreak affects men in two completely different ways. One man becomes bitter, emotionally broken, desperate, validation-seeking, reactive. The other man becomes stronger, calmer, wiser, more disciplined, more emotionally aware. The same pain created completely different outcomes. Why? Mindset. The Stoic man uses suffering as refinement, not destruction. He studies himself during pain, studies his fears, his attachment patterns, his emotional weaknesses, and slowly, he transforms internally. That transformation changes his entire energy. Now he becomes less needy, less reactive, less emotionally dependent, and ironically, much more attractive psychologically. Because emotional independence creates calm masculine presence. Many younger women are deeply drawn toward men who have survived pain without becoming emotionally toxic. That combination feels rare. A man who has suffered but remained grounded. A man who became wiser instead of bitter. A man who learned emotional discipline instead of emotional avoidance. That energy creates depth, and depth creates emotional attraction. This is why some older men become incredibly magnetic later in life. Pain matured them, loss humbled them, discipline sharpened them, stoicism guided them. Now they move differently emotionally, with patience, with awareness, with control. And younger women feel this emotional depth immediately, not through words, through presence. Because emotionally refined men create completely different experiences around women. Calmer experiences, safer experiences, deeper experiences. Anyone can smile during easy seasons, but the man who remains grounded after suffering, that man becomes dangerous in the best possible way. Why desperation can never hide. This is one of the cruelest truths about attraction. Desperation always reveals itself eventually. even when hidden behind confidence, money, charm, status, looks. If emotional desperation exists internally, it leaks through behavior. And younger women feel it quickly, maybe not consciously at first, but emotionally. Desperate men move differently. They overpursue, overtext, overreact, overcompensate, overgive. And beneath all those behaviors is usually one hidden fear. I'm afraid I'm not enough. That fear silently shapes masculine energy, and fear-based energy weakens attraction. Stoicism teaches freedom from emotional dependence. Not because emotions are bad, because emotional dependence creates suffering. The Stoic man learns to enjoy connection without emotionally collapsing around it. That emotional stability changes everything. Now his actions become intentional instead of desperate. He no longer chases validation compulsively, no longer panics during uncertainty, no longer loses dignity trying to force attention. And dignity matters deeply in attraction psychology. A younger woman may forgive flaws, but desperation changes how she emotionally perceives a man entirely. Because desperation creates pressure, and pressure destroys emotional freedom. This is why emotionally grounded men feel so different psychologically. Their energy feels relaxed, calm, centered, not emotionally starving. And emotionally full energy creates attraction naturally, not because the man is pretending not to care, because he genuinely respects himself internally. That self-respect creates emotional stability, and emotional stability creates masculine presence. The silent energy women remember forever. Here is something many men never understand until it's too late. Women often remember emotional energy more than specific words. How a man made them feel emotionally becomes unforgettable, especially younger women experiencing grounded masculine energy for the first time. The calm man becomes memorable. The emotionally disciplined man becomes memorable. The man who listens calmly during conflict becomes memorable. The man who remains grounded under pressure becomes memorable. Why? Because emotional stability feels rare, and rarity creates emotional impact. Many younger women encounter emotionally immature men constantly, men controlled by ego, anger, validation, attention, insecurity. So when they meet a truly grounded older man, the emotional contrast feels powerful. His calmness feels different. His patience feels different. His emotional control feels different. And that difference creates attraction beyond surface appearance. This is why Stoicism becomes increasingly valuable with age. Not because Stoicism makes men emotionless, because it makes men emotionally disciplined. And emotional discipline creates peace. Peace creates confidence. Confidence creates presence. And presence creates attraction. The strongest older men understand this deeply. They stop trying to impress everyone. Stop seeking constant approval. Stop performing emotionally. And instead, they master themselves. That mastery changes everything. Why true masculine energy feels calm, not loud. One of the biggest lies modern culture tells men is that masculinity must always be loud, aggressive, dominating, attention-seeking, emotionally hard. But real masculine energy feels different psychologically. It feels calm, grounded, controlled, certain. A younger woman can feel this difference immediately, because loudness often hides insecurity. The man constantly trying to dominate every room emotionally usually fears invisibility internally. So he overcompensates, talks too much, shows off too much, tries too hard to appear powerful. And ironically, this weakens attraction, because true power rarely needs constant advertisement. This is why Stoicism creates such powerful masculine presence. The Stoic man does not rush emotionally to prove himself. He understands his value internally. That internal certainty changes everything about his energy. His silence feels different. His eye contact feels different. His reactions feel different. Even the way he handles pressure feels different. And women observe these things constantly. especially younger women searching unconsciously for emotional grounding in a chaotic world. The calm older man feels emotionally safe. Not boring. Safe. There's a difference. Many men confuse peace with weakness because modern culture glorifies emotional chaos constantly. But psychologically, people relax around emotionally regulated individuals. A younger woman relaxes differently around a grounded older man. Her nervous system feels calmer. Her emotional guard lowers naturally because his energy communicates stability, not emotional danger. This is why some men become more attractive simply by becoming emotionally quieter, not emotionally distant, emotionally intentional. There's enormous power in a man who does not react impulsively to everything, who remains composed during stress, who speaks calmly during tension, who listens without defensiveness. That emotional steadiness becomes magnetic, especially compared to emotionally reactive men. Storms make noise. Mountains stay silent, and yet mountains feel far more powerful. That's the difference between emotional chaos and emotional strength. Why many older men accidentally become emotionally feminine. This is a truth many people avoid discussing honestly. Masculine and feminine energy are psychological dynamics, not biology alone. And many older men unintentionally weaken their masculine energy through emotional behavior. Not because they are bad men, because emotional fear changes behavior slowly. The man becomes overly emotional in unhealthy ways, over-explaining constantly, seeking reassurance constantly, needing emotional certainty constantly, overanalyzing constantly, becoming emotionally reactive constantly, and eventually, polarity weakens. Now the emotional dynamic feels unbalanced. Because healthy masculine energy creates grounding, direction, emotional steadiness, not emotional chaos. This does not mean men should suppress emotions. That misunderstanding destroys many lives. Stoicism is not emotional suppression. It is emotional mastery. A stoic man can feel deeply while remaining grounded. That balance creates strength. The emotionally weak man becomes ruled by feelings constantly. Every mood controls him. Every fear controls him. Every insecurity controls him. And women feel emotionally unsafe around unstable masculine energy over time. A younger woman naturally relaxes around a man who regulates himself emotionally. Because regulation creates psychological safety. The grounded older man does not emotionally dump every insecurity onto the relationship. He processes emotions with awareness, with discipline, with maturity, and maturity creates attraction, especially in modern relationships where emotional impulsiveness has become normal. This is why emotional self-control becomes increasingly attractive with age, because maturity should create wisdom, not emotional instability. A truly masculine older man becomes calmer over time, not more desperate, not more reactive, not more emotionally needy, calmer, sharper, more emotionally disciplined. And that emotional discipline creates enormous attraction psychologically. Why emotional self-respect changes everything. This is one of the deepest lessons a man can ever learn. Self-respect changes masculine energy completely. A man without self-respect becomes emotionally negotiable. He tolerates disrespect, chases inconsistent attention, begs for validation, overextends emotionally for people who barely appreciate him, and eventually, his confidence collapses internally because self-betrayal destroys masculine presence faster than rejection ever could. Stoicism teaches men to build internal dignity first, not external image. Internal dignity. A stoic man respects himself whether people validate him or not. And that self-respect changes how others perceive him emotionally, especially women, because self-respect creates boundaries naturally, not forced boundaries, natural boundaries. The grounded older man no longer tolerates emotionally draining behavior endlessly, no longer abandons his standards for attention. no longer sacrifices his peace trying to keep someone emotionally interested. And this emotional stability creates attraction. Ironically, many men lose attraction trying too hard to keep attraction, because desperation weakens dignity, but self-respect strengthens presence. A younger woman feels this difference immediately. One man feels emotionally desperate for connection. The other feels emotionally complete within himself. And emotionally complete men create emotional safety naturally. This is why some men become more attractive after learning to walk away peacefully. Not angrily, peacefully, because peaceful detachment communicates enormous inner strength. The man no longer fears losing himself inside relationships. And that emotional freedom changes everything. The strongest man in the room is often the one least desperate for approval. That's real power. Why attention addiction destroys modern relationships. Modern society has created something dangerous psychologically. Attention addiction. Everyone wants constant validation now. Constant replies. Constant likes. Constant reassurance. Constant emotional stimulation. And this addiction destroys emotional peace completely. Many older men unknowingly become trapped in this cycle, especially after experiencing loneliness. Now they become emotionally dependent on attention from younger women. Every message becomes emotionally important. Every delay creates anxiety. Every emotional shift creates overthinking. And slowly, emotional stability disappears. This creates enormous pressure inside relationships. Because now the woman feels responsible for managing the man's emotional state constantly. That pressure kills attraction over time. Stoicism protects against this beautifully, because Stoicism teaches internal peace. The Stoic man enjoys attention, but does not emotionally depend on it. He enjoys connection, but does not lose himself without it. That emotional independence creates calm masculine energy. And calm masculine energy feels powerful psychologically. This is why emotionally disciplined older men stand out today. Most people are emotionally addicted to stimulation, but the grounded man remains centered internally. He can enjoy silence, enjoy solitude, enjoy peace. And people who enjoy their own presence create stronger relationships naturally, because they do not suffocate others emotionally. A younger woman feels emotionally freer around a grounded man, because his happiness does not depend entirely on controlling her attention constantly. That emotional freedom creates healthier attraction, and healthy attraction lasts longer than emotionally obsessive attachment. Why the best older men never stop evolving. This may be the most important truth in this entire video. Growth keeps masculine energy alive. The moment a man stops evolving internally, his energy becomes stagnant, predictable, emotionally dull. This is why many relationships lose emotional intensity over time. Not because love disappeared, because growth disappeared. The grounded older man continues evolving forever. Mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, financially, not to impress others. Because growth is part of his identity, and identity shapes energy. A younger woman naturally feels inspired around a man moving forward in life. Purpose creates momentum. Momentum creates vitality. Vitality creates attraction. This is why disciplined men often become more attractive with age. Their emotional depth increases. Their wisdom increases. Their calmness increases. Their self-awareness increases. And these qualities create emotional gravity. The stagnant man slowly becomes emotionally passive, comfortable, uninspired, reactive, and attraction weakens. Stoicism constantly warns against comfort destroying discipline, because comfort without awareness creates decay slowly. The disciplined older man understands this deeply. He never stops sharpening himself, never stops learning, never stops growing. And growth keeps masculine energy alive. The final truth about attraction. Attraction is not built only through appearance. It is built through emotional experience. How someone feels around you psychologically matters enormously. Do they feel calm, safe, inspired, free, grounded? Or do they feel pressured, drained, emotionally responsible for stabilizing you constantly? This is why emotional discipline matters more than performance. The grounded older man becomes attractive because his energy feels rare, calm in a chaotic world, disciplined in an impulsive world, purpose-driven in a distracted world. And younger women feel this deeply, especially when they encounter so much emotional immaturity elsewhere. That is why Stoicism changes relationships completely. Not because it teaches manipulation, because it teaches mastery over yourself. And self-mastery is the foundation of lasting masculine presence. So if you truly want to become more attractive as an older man, stop chasing youth desperately. Stop seeking constant validation. Stop trying to control everything emotionally. Stop abandoning your purpose for attention. And start mastering yourself instead. Master your emotions. Master your reactions. Master your fears. Master your need for approval. Because the man who controls himself becomes powerful without forcing it. And power without desperation becomes magnetic. The world is filled with emotionally reactive men. Be different. Become grounded. Become disciplined. Become calm under pressure. Because calm masculine energy is becoming rare now. And rare men become unforgettable. Subscribe to the channel now for more powerful videos on Stoicism, masculine psychology, emotional discipline, self-mastery, and modern relationships. And remember this, a younger woman may admire looks temporarily, but she remembers emotional presence forever.